to pitch, the scouts would do this. Shh, have the gun out.
Aniak.
Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. Ms. Growski, will you please do a roll call?
Mr. Craig, Mr. Estheimer,
Present.
Mr. Freitas,
Here.
Mr. Green,
Here.
Mr. Lamos,
Here.
Dr. Pomponio,
Here.
Mr. Sage,
Here.
Mr. Craig,
Here.
Thank you. Welcome everyone to our Tuesday, April 13, 2021 regular board meeting. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance now, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands. Thank you, everybody. My mic cut out. Southgate's mission statement, learning for life. Our vision statement is Southgate Community Schools, the best choice for students and parents. Do we have any revisions or approval of tonight's agenda?
President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Motion by Dr. Pomponio.
Support.
Who is that? I'm sorry.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Green. All right. Any discussion? All right. Seeing none. Ms. Grosky, will you please call the question?
Mr. Estheimer,
Yes.
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Lamos,
Yes.
Dr. Pomponio,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Craig.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Motion carries. We have an agenda. Do we have any citizens' comments tonight? You're muted, I think, Sharon.
No, we have no citizen comments.
All right, thank you so much. And item F, we don't have any formal presentations tonight. So let's go to item G, superintendent update. Do you have an update for us?
I do. I have something special to report. We have 2 teachers who have been selected as the PAC Teachers of the Year, the special recognition, Katie Birch and Nicole Gruber. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Kelly Thomas, our Director for Special Education, to talk about them and certainly what they've done to earn such a remarkable recognition.
You're welcome, Kelly.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
So I know last meeting we had talked a little bit about how we nominated the PAC, our PAC representative, and she's actually the one that nominated Katie and Nicole for this award. So she wanted me to let you know that what she thought was that these 2 ladies have gone above and beyond to make sure each student in their class has been successful in their lives, especially this year in the pandemic. The switching back and forth has been really difficult for the kids that they teach, and she just thought that they had done an absolutely remarkable job. She said, to quote her, she said, teaching during this COVID-19 pandemic is so far from typical. It's literally nothing anybody signed up for, but they're doing it anyway. And that even in the distance learnings, they switch back and forth in a blink of an eye and have done such a fabulous job. And I just wanted to note that I know we've talked about Katie and Nicole before, but that they teach our students with our cross-categorical needs, which is the students with a mild to moderate cognitive impairment, and they teach our life skills curriculum. So they teach functional academics that will help the students live independently. And this creativity that Ms. Museworthy noted is something that they have shown throughout all the years. They focus on the students' self-care, personal finance, job skills and applications, as well as improving the students' reading, writing, and math skills. They have gone above and beyond creating unique project-based learning opportunities and community-based instruction for all their students so that the students can explore different opportunities. And so when they leave us, they can function independently. So in the past, I've brought them to you and we've done some things like they've opened pizza shops and t-shirt shops. They did the thrift store, and any profits they make from these businesses, they put towards community-based instruction where students can practice shopping at grocery stores for recipes and using smart bus transportations. And so the whole point of this is to make sure all the kids, when they leave here, they're confident to participate in the world around us and everything that they can offer. And I just want to congratulate them on everything they've done for creating such an exemplary program. And also I should note that they are models for creating absolutely wonderful relationships with kids. So if you have any questions about any of their programming, I'm more than glad at any time to talk to you guys about it. But thank you for joining us and congratulating them.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. I appreciate it.
you.
Congratulations to those ladies. Ms. Irvine, will you send a formal letter of congratulations on behalf of the board for us, please?
I would be delighted to. Absolutely.
All right.
And that is all I have to upfront dates today.
All right. Well, let's just end the meeting there.
All right. I think it's
I'm on a high note. All right. We'll move on to item H, finance update. Is there anything officially you need to update us with? Not today? Okay. All right. Move down to I, our consent agenda, which consists of minutes from the March 23rd, 2021 meeting. Number 2, our HR update. And number 3, our disbursements for March 2021.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Dr. Pomponio, do we have a second tonight for that?
Support.
Thank you, Mr. Lanos. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Grohowski, will you please call the question?
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Lamos,
Yes.
Dr. Pomponio,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Estheimer.
Yes, thank you. Motion carries. All right. Without further ado, let's get into action item number 1. This is our approval of the mode of instruction for April. As you know, we have to revisit this topic every 30 days, which is today. So here we are. And Ms. Irvine, go ahead and take it away.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share a slide, some slides that I have regarding mode of instruction. And I want to first confirm that all of you can see this as a slideshow. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, I just want to confirm. So mode of instruction, clearly, we've had a lot of conversation, and as has everyone in the state, about the current status of COVID now at this point in time. And just as a chance to review where we were in January, we did select a metric for starting an in-person option, and we did so because we didn't have any case data for schools being in person in terms of what we thought would happen or any experience data at that time. So we did the best we could and made a decision to tie the return to in-person schooling with a metric of positivity rate. And in our case, we ended up with a weighted daily new case average of 9 or fewer for elementary and middle school, which put us in person starting January 25th. And for high school, a weighted daily new case average of 5 or fewer, which put us in place for February 19th for freshmen and February 22nd for everyone else. We did not at that time choose a metric for the automatic return to remote instruction. The plan that was approved in January did determine that we would consider cases on a case-by-case basis from our school experiences in terms of whether or not we were able to conduct school safely or not. We certainly have now seen some escalation. Wayne County right now is at severe risk. It's 18.9% positivity rate as of April 10th, which is the last date we'd had some data at the time that this was earlier today. The weighted daily new case average on the formula we had devised is 29.06, and the last date for which we have all of the districts reporting through the site that we use was April 8th. I'm sure all of you are aware, and we did send out a notice to our families on Friday, April 9th, that the Governor Whitmer recommended a 2-week pause for high school and athletics on Friday, April 9th. Very soon after, MHSAA came out and said that they would not do that. Instead, they would focus on testing in the way that that's carried out at this time, as well as making sure that play is considered safe. And I will tell you that the in-person downriver area school districts, many of them opted to stay the course with athletic testing in place and absence of school-associated transmissions. So the experience that we're having with the absence of outbreaks, which outbreaks are school-associated contacts that then turn into positive cases, and they are not happening in instructional programs. Now, that's not true for athletics. We know our cheer, wrestling, and several in basketball were hit very hard with some school-associated outbreaks, but it has not happened in our classrooms. So here's what we look like currently. So we've had since April 6th, so I was able to say that as of April 9th, we had only had 2 student cases that did change yesterday. We have now Allen Elementary has 5 positive school-associated cases. This represents 3 families. 5 classrooms have shifted to remote because those were spread out. There are 28 students and staff that are quarantined, and those quarantines are the close contacts of our positive school-associated cases, as well as those students and staff who are quarantined because of out-of-school cases. So family members that may be sick or exposure they've had in other places outside of school. So those numbers do reflect students both from outside and from within. Ford Line Elementary has no positive school-associated cases. No classrooms have shifted to remote. There are 11 students quarantined and students and staff quarantined there. Grogan has 1 positive school-associated case. 1 classroom has shifted to remote and has 17 quarantined students and staff. Shelters Elementary has 3 positive school-associated cases, 2 families represented. Classrooms shifted to remote. There were 2 of them on their 22 quarantined students and staff there. Davidson Middle School, none. Classrooms shifted to remote. Obviously, that's not relevant, but I will tell you that, again, the way we explained it in our letter of home on Friday, we had our community absolutely showed up on this. And by showing up, meaning they did their part. They decided to self-select quarantining and did so. We had about 25% of our enrollment in place during last week for Anderson High School as well as Davidson. And the numbers show that they were very conscientious and made sure that they were careful about this. And we have 6 students at DMS that's quarantined students and staff, and 22 at the high school. So I think we can see that especially our secondary remote option is really making a big difference, which is one reason why for our school district, Governor Whitmer's directive may not have been as relevant as it may have been for others. Here are some options for mode of instruction for April. We can continue in person, remote, and virtual, and continue handling things on a case-by-case basis. If we find that we start with in-school transmissions, I would recommend we do a 2-week pause if it starts to show up. And it can be a building, it can be a level, it can be elementary level, it can be it can be a variety of ways to look at it. But if we start seeing in-school transmissions, and we really need an immediate approach to that. We can pause. We can choose to pause at this point in time, any of our levels or in athletics, or individual schools for 2 weeks if we feel concerned, or we can return to remote or virtual until the weighted daily new case average reaches 10 cases or fewer. Looking at the way that these trends, these 14-day trailing averages work, which is what ours are based on, it would take a while for that to return back to 10 cases or fewer. And the chances of that happening by June would be pretty slim. District recommendation is to continue in-person, remote, and virtual and handle on case-by-case basis. 2-week pausing if in-school transmissions appear. And our rationale is, again, we have not had evidence of instructional program outbreaks. We have the option to self-select remote and secondary. We have the option to return to remote for elementary for the rest of the year, if that's what they choose to do. And we have the practice of switching an entire elementary class to temporary remote in a positive case that makes sure that even though students in a class may not be considered a close contact, we are being conservative in that approach. And we make sure that our children have an instructional program during that time. And then athletic testing and outdoor spring sports, that's happening. We are following the athletic testing protocols that the health department has given us. And the way that we're conducting it is according to those expectations and regulations. And then we are in an outdoor spring sporting world. It's very different than gyms and wrestling mats and cheer mats. So we are in sports that tend to distance themselves already and have a pretty, an air quality improvement than the indoor sports. So that is why we would consider at this point in time that to be our best recommendation. So at this time, the motions in front of you represent these various approaches, and we do recommend staying the course.
Thank you for your presentation. Questions for staff? Anybody have a question for Ms. Irvine? I see none.
Oh, I do.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Gomes.
How do we define in-school transmissions on the recommendation slide? Is it one transmission or a million or?
Yeah. So we would consider that we would be put on an outbreak list, and we were put on an outbreak list for both wrestling and for cheer. And what happens is we have a positive case within that contact tracing. All of the close contacts are identified. If a close contact of a positive case becomes positive, then that's considered to be an outbreak. And even if that happens one time, that's considered an outbreak, and then we are identified. So it is something that the County Department of Health identifies on our behalf. So we don't actually come up with that ourselves. If Wayne County says this is considered an outbreak, because we can see a connection, and that would be an in-school transmission.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I see none. Any raised hands? No? All right. Would anybody like to make a motion tonight?
I'd like to make a motion to approve in-person, remote, and virtual instruction to all Southgate Community School students for April as presented. If the district experiences a school-associated outbreak among students in its instructional program, it will implement a 2-week pause to in-person instruction.
Thank you, Dr. Pomponio.
Or
Supported by, who was that? I'm sorry, Mr. Sage? Okay. There's a lot of boxes on my screen. I apologize. It's hard to see everybody. All right. So we have a motion by Pomponio, supported by Mr. Sage. Discussion. Any discussion?
I'll start. I think it's important to consider all the facts as we move forward with regard to students. I mean, the thing that I keep thinking about the most is that when we were back to in our normal school days, it was said that if a student missed a day due to illness or whatever, they had a lot that they missed. So with that thought in mind, moving forward, I mean, we have practiced safe protocols, and we have the measures in place, just like the people that go to work today and the grocery stores and everything else. We have to make it, we have to start somewhere. We have the protocols there, and the kids, what's at risk What's at risk now is their mental health and their learning just stopping. We can't just stop the learning and then restart and stop. So I think it's the best decision to move forward and leave it to the parents to decide what's best for their family and for their children. But I think that we need to move forward, practicing safe measures, but moving forward and getting the students back to learning.
Thank you, Dr. P. Any other discussion tonight? All right, seeing none, Ms. Grahowski, will you call the question? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Lamas, go ahead. Your mic is off.
I wonder. So what would be the trigger? I'm inclined to agree very much with Dr. Pomponio, but what would be the trigger? How would we view that? Because it's a pretty broad statement that we have in our on the recommendation slide.
So let's take, for instance, we have something at shelters that happens, and we get a call from Wayne County Health Department that says that we are dealing with an outbreak at this point in time. That would trigger a 2-week pause. Now, I think that is an important thing to clarify. Would it just be for elementary?
Yeah.
At this point, my inclination would be tailored to what we're seeing. So let's say we see multiple outbreaks happening at the same time. So we see one at shelters, we see one at Allen, we see one at, the high school. It's an indicator that we are dealing with a different variant, that we are actually seeing some contagious activity that we haven't seen. So I think at that point, that's a whole district pause for 2 weeks. If we're seeing it just in elementary, because we have kids that are engaging at recess together, for instance, and we're seeing that spread happen for the first time, we would look at it as an elementary level pause. So I do think you're right, Trustee Lamos, that it isn't clear cut in terms of there's still a discretionary component into how extensive would that pause be and what would be relevant. So if we are talking about an outbreak between 2 students who hang out at school or after school, that's a different situation than if we're talking about 2 unrelated cases, or that only by virtue of the kids sitting next to them that they got it. Or if you see one student and now you have contacts all around them that are. So I do think there's still a level of discretion.
Thank you. It's exactly what I was hoping here. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any further discussion? If not, I will ask Ms. Grasky to please call the question. I don't see any hands up. All right.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Lamos,
Yes.
Dr. Pomponio,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Estheimer,
Yes.
Mr. Freitas.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Motion carries. These decisions are never easy, and I appreciate the time and thought put into it by staff and Ms. Irvine for your presentation. Thank you so much. All right, going on to action item 2. This is approval of the Futures Education LSE Service Agreement.
Yes, thank you. Annually, we contract with a company to provide some of our hard-to-get ancillary special education support services. Our district uses this company as a third-party company for psychological services for Beacon Day treatment and for occupational therapy for the full district. We are going to ask for a renewal of that contract, and the prices from the 2021 school year reflect a 1.4 increase to the cost for occupational therapy services. So, but this is a hard to staff position, and in terms of the need that's in our district, really the most efficient way to handle that is through a third party.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Irvine?
What is the overall scale of the spend? I mean, I saw the hourly rates, and I understand there's been a decrease or a little increase. Do we spend $100 billion on this, or $10, or what does that look like?
I'm going to see if Kelly is, Kelly, are you available, Ms. Thomas?
So I did not pull the budget to see how much we spend, but one of the reasons that we contract actually is because we don't need a full-time person.
Right.
So our occupational therapist works on average about 15 to 20 hours a week. So we don't have the 30 hours in yet, and that's why. And the Beacon person is on an on-call. We rarely need a psychologist, but if we need an avail, they're on an on-call basis. So that's covered by Act 18. So it's not, it's usually between 15 and 20, maybe 15 and 25 hours a week that we use.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know. I understand the importance of having the service, and I think the mechanism makes sense. I was just curious as to the overall spend. Thank you.
Good question, Mr. Lamas. Mr. Craig.
Thank you. So this is a new contract, or is this an extension of an existing?
It is a renewal. So I understand this came for renewal to me. And as a third party, this needs to go before the board. I understand that some years it does come before the board and some years it doesn't, but it should annually.
So our last contract didn't have some kind of an automatic renewal option. It just was 1 year. Is that what this is 1 year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Thank you.
So I have a question.
Go ahead, Dr. Pomponio.
Are there any other organizations that provide that service along with them?
Ms. Thomas.
There are multiple companies that provide the services, but they often have difficulty finding personnel. So we've been sticking with Futures because then they've been sending us the same occupational therapist and psychologist for the last 5 or 6 years. So we don't have, we've never gone without while they look for people.
Well, that sounds good. That's what I was thinking. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. I'll entertain a motion for action item number 2.
Make a motion to approve the service agreement with Futures Education as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Pomponio. Do we have a second for that?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Craig. Any further discussion on this topic? Seeing none, Ms. Grochowski, will you please call the question?
Mr. Lamos,
I'm sorry. Yes.
Dr. Pomponio,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Estheimer,
Yes.
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Thomas, and thank you, everyone. Moving down to action item number 3, the approval of the purchase of the DMS wrestling and cheerleading mat. Ms. Irvine.
Yes, this is a feel-good item, but it's something that's very important. And I think Ms. Hinsman is on this evening as well and can speak to this. DMS has been using a mat that was handed down from Anderson High School 10 years ago, over 10 years ago. And by the point in time in which it moved down to DMS, it had already kind of lasted its long life, kind of outlasted its life at the high school. So it's safe to say that it's been a very long time since DMS has had its own mat and has not had anything that's branded as DMS that they can call their own. And the school district is paying $500 a season in tape alone to keep the mats together. So we do have enhancement money that I know that Pay to Play was moved out to allow enhancement money in to help fund some of these costs. And this is a very necessary cost for that program.
Thank you. Would you like to add anything, Ms. Hinsman?
Ms. Irvine did a great job describing it. We have 2 wonderful programs that lead into state champion programs. So we would like to bring that quality to Davidson too, for the safety of our athletes and the bright, beautiful Davidson Titans. It's a beautiful mat with the and the flex and the Velcro will allow us to not use tape anymore. This will be a great purchase and it's a really good price.
Thank you. Thank you both for your presentation. Does anybody have any questions for staff? Mr. Green.
Mr. Sage, my friend, through the chair to Mr. Sage. You asked me about football fields a year ago. Now this is your domain, so I want to know. You looked through this, I'm sure. Is this a quality mat? Is this what we want?
I can tell you, well, firsthand that I've been on the mats the last 2.5 months with the athletes, the wrestlers, both male and female. The cheer was at another location, and I can tell you that these mats are in dire straits. Thank God the school has extended them for this period of time and used them as long as they possibly could. They're at end of life. And as far as the mat, I don't know specifically as far as the manufacturer. I can tell you it's a good price from a mat perspective. But looking at where the 3 quotes come from, they're real close, and they're all manufactured pretty much the same way. So I don't have firsthand experience with this company, but I have full belief in it. It says that there's a 1-year warranty, full warranty with repair replacement. The only thing with these type of mats is over time with the Velcro, but that's any given mat. Rather than taping the mats, this is the way to go for sure.
That's all I was looking for.
I know that Mrs. Hinsman's put quite a bit of time in as far as with the background check of it.
I just ceded your expertise. Let's just make sure it's the right color.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just so we know, the viewing public knows what we're talking about, this is what it will look like. It's really nice. All right. Did you have anything, Dr. Pomponio?
Yeah, I just want to say that for as long as I've been here, I think 5 years plus, I've heard it, that they've needed it, and this has been a long time coming. I'm so happy to see this. And plus, I mean, for the safety of the mats, yes, but oh my God, to see the school pride, that's just going to be so awesome for the kids and for the tournaments and competitions. So glad to definitely support this. Thank you.
No, I absolutely love the branding of it. Great job by all. I know my son would have loved to wrestle on it this year, but we will defer. And the future wrestlers and cheerleaders, God bless them, and move towards states.
All right. Fantastic. Any other questions or comments? All right. If not, we'll entertain a motion for this action item.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of a wrestling and cheer mat for Davidson Middle School in the amount of $9,520 from Dalamer Sport Services as presented.
Support.
Thank you, Dr. P. And that's supported by Mr. Sage. All right. Any further discussion? Congratulations. I can't wait to see them on that new mat. And motion, we'll go ahead and call the question. Sorry.
Dr. Pomponio,
Yes.
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Estheimer,
Yes.
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Lamos.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank
Moving
you.
on. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Welcome.
Moving on to action item number 4, approval of the purchase of the certified playground mulch for Allen, Fordline, Brogan, and Shelters. Many of the board members have been hearing about this for a little bit of time, and we've received some pictures of the condition, and most of us have toured and seen the condition of these playgrounds. So, Ms. Irvine, will you bring us up to speed on this particular action item?
I will, yes. So it has been since the last certified playground mulch deposit on these playgrounds was 2017. And that means that we are going to have to do some catch up on this. We will need to provide a level of depth of 6 to 8 inches for licensing purposes for GSRP programming, as well as for our SETSEG insurer. And this will require 1,355 cubic yards to do. It will be 35,907. This will be funded in part by GSRP. We are aiming for all of it to be GSRP, but we may settle for a portion of it. Otherwise, it will be enhancement money that covers that. But this is a necessary piece of the safety of our children at this time.
Thank you. I'm not sure if it's in here or not, but do they actually install it and spread it, or is that something that we have staff do?
It won't be our staff. They do the installation.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Irvine?
I have
Yes.
a comment.
Yes.
Definitely. I mean, some of the play equipment, it looks maybe from far away, it looks decent, but you know, I took the drive over there to Allen Elementary for one, and it's just really in bad shape. So, I mean, compared to that, and I went over to the Rotary Park, there's a big difference if you look at the mulch there and the depth and the difference between well, even the equipment, but just that alone, that's going to make a big difference, at least for the kids to be safe around. That's a good start.
I have a
Thank you.
question. Were the materials from Superior Ground Cover and those from Pro Playgrounds the same materials? Because there's a huge price difference between them.
Jacob was supposed to be with her. He was unable to make it last minute. So I'll answer to the best of my understanding of this.
Okay.
He did have to find 3 quotes. One of these quotes is actually from an area out of state.
Yep.
So I believe that is partially the reason before the higher estimate.
Okay, I just noticed that. You're right.
Yeah.
And one last question: did we consider North Point? Because it's a nightmare in those playgrounds back there. It's terrible.
We'll take a look at it and do a quote on it. We were naming really very specifically the programs that were going to have the GSRP programming just because of the licensing side of that. But I absolutely agree that we need to be as expansive as possible. So we'll go and take a look at that as well.
Thank you. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sage.
So this current mulch, it's going to go over our existing mulch is the way I'm reading this. Is that a fair statement?
Yes. So the initial plan was to excavate and then completely replace. But their recommendation was you need to have a bed kind of supporting the mulch, and that what's there can serve as that bed. So by the depth itself, you'll still it'll feel like you've kind of excavated, but you'll still have a good strong underlayer.
But the additional that they're going to put in, is that 6 to 8 inches?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not with the existing that they're just posing it in. Thank you.
No. They are completely adding, a huge layer. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? All right, seeing none. Go ahead, Mr. Craig, pardon me.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of 1,355 cubic yards of certified playground mulch for Allen, Ford Line, Grogan, and Shelters Elementary Schools from Superior Ground Cover in the amount of $35,907.50.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Do we have a second to that motion?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Green. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, Ms. Grahowski?
Mr. Sage,
Yes.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Estheimer,
Yes.
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Lamos,
Yes.
Dr. Pomponio.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing that to us. Motion carries. All right, moving on to item K. Any employee representative scheduled to speak tonight, or?
No,
Okay.
not tonight.
All right, back to the board first with any information and announcements.
You have something?
Hi, Dr. Pomponio, and then Mr. Green.
Thank you. First, want to thank or congratulate a couple of our students. One is Jordan Hunt for signing with Adrian College for hockey, and Brooke McClure for signing with the University of Michigan for soccer. So congratulations to those 2 of our students. And the other thing I want, yes. And then the other thing I wanted to do is, I know that, I appreciate all the people that work in our district, but I want to pay special attention to our secretaries or administrative assistants, because they hold everything together within our districts and our buildings. So a special thank you to those. Thank you, Teresa. You too. And that's all I have.
All right, Mr. Green.
I just like to congratulate every extracurricular activity in the winter and forthcoming in the spring, trying to get back to some sort of normalcy, whether it's sports, whether it's an activity, whether it's a club, the teachers that have supported it, the students and parents that have followed the rules to try to keep those programs going, to get us back to some sort of normalcy. And, you know, I forgot to mention this in the last meeting, but I would be remiss if I forgot again. So at all levels, any clubs, any activities in elementary, middle school, high school, sports, everything, you know, they just a great job by them. You know, for the students that are the resolve of the students and the parents and working with us in this situation of what this district has done. I think through some heartache and some disagreements, which was going to happen, I think our plan has been fairly solid. And other districts have had a rough time on it compared to our district, and hopefully, knock on wood, we continue to move in the right direction and give parents choices. I also want to call out a group of people, nothing against the administrative assistants, because I think they're wonderful also. But the food service people, I think, get left out a lot. And we mentioned it a few months ago when it all started, but probably about a month ago, I went out on a Wednesday and saw 6, 7, 8, 9 of them that were, you know, doing diligently what they do every Wednesday, not only, you know, that day, but in the last year, really. And I don't think they give enough credit for what they've done during this pandemic, week after week after week.
For sure. Yeah, great job. Thank you.
So just, you know, we're all in it together. I've said it before. I'll say it again. You know, I guess one of my mantras is when I answer phone calls is to say, everybody's right. Everybody's right in their opinion and their beliefs, your own personal belief, your own personal opinion for your situation. That's right. And I can appreciate that. I think the board in this district can appreciate that, and we'll continue to try to work together with you to make this the best place for your children to be in school. So with that, I hope everybody stays safe and has a wonderful 2 weeks until we meet again. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Mr. Green. Mr. Freitas.
Yes, I'd like to wish everyone good luck tomorrow who will be taking the SAT test, and congratulate everyone who's doing the sports in the spring to piggyback on everybody else, the parents that are following the directions, the children that are following the rules. It's wonderful to see Anderson High School abuzz with all the traffic there, people playing sports and up there enjoying the track and the facilities. So it's wonderful. It's great spring. So come out and support us.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any other comments or nobody else? I'll just end then by saying thanks to everybody, the love and support. My mom is still having a rough time of it, but I appreciate the prayers. And I don't want to make Dr. Pomponio sad, but I want to send out my condolences to her family. She had a death in the family recently, and it's been a rough year already for the Pomponio family and the other side of the family. So our prayers go out to you. And with that, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lamas. Do we have a second? Mr. Craig, any discussion? Seeing none, please call the question, Doctor, or Teresa, please.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Mr. Estheimer,
Yes.
Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yeah.
Mr. Lamos,
Yes.
Dr. Pomponio,
Yes.
Mr. Sage.
Yes.
All right, it is 7:00.